Okay, so I see some people coming in, so I suggest we give it a start. Welcome everybody for the webinar about modern FP&A with Jedox. Good afternoon, and good to see that so many people of you are joining this afternoon for us to talk about FP&A. Maybe first to start off with some general rules, some housekeeping. As you are entering the conference, you are muted. You can of course ask questions, so we would like to have some interactivity. Please do use the Q&A for your questions, and after the session, after the demonstration session, we will get some time to answer your questions, of course. Well, during the webinar today, we would ask for your participation for 2 polls, which we would like to have given the subject of the webinar. And after the webinar, we will provide you with a survey. It would be highly appreciated if you take the time just to fill out a few questions about what your thoughts are about the webinar, what we did well or what we should do better. Very happy to learn your, get your feedback to improve for us. So thank you in advance. You hear me speaking. My name is Christian van Klappek. You will also hear my colleague in a few minutes speaking. Well, myself, I work within Aexis and I am active in our CPM division. So I work within the domain of corporate performance management, about budgeting, planning, financial planning analysis, financial consolidation, reporting, together with our team, of course, within CPM. And in the second part of today, my colleague Stijn will introduce you to the Jedox. Stijn, maybe you can give a short introduction about yourself.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, Christian. Thanks for the introduction. Warm welcome from my side as well. So my name is Stijn Hermans. I am the business development responsible for CPM business unit in Belgium. So if you have any questions during the session, as Christian was mentioning, please do use the Q&A section. We will come back to the questions in the end of the session. I think that's it until now from my side. I will give you the demonstration in the second part. So if you have any questions, shoot. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you, Stijn. As for the agenda for today, before Stijn will give a very interesting demonstration about Jedox and how it can support your FP&A process, we will talk a little bit about the process and what the trends are in FP&A and what is FP&A involving to, before we go to the demonstration and wrap up. So basically that's the agenda for today. Maybe as a short introduction for you who don't know Aexis, as we introduced, we work within the company Aexis. And ever since the foundation actually of Aexis, our goal is to help our customers with the information they need to steer their business the most efficient way possible. So our key expertises are in reporting, financial consolidation, financial reporting, operational reporting, dashboarding, budgeting, planning, forecasting, coping with scenarios, dealing with data, master data management, etc. So ever since our foundation, we are active in this domain. We do this with our team, which consists of approximately 130 colleagues in Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and France. And we work within lots of our companies in which we support with FP&A processes. So these are in all kinds of markets. So for instance, below in the screen, you will see some references of companies we work for in foods, drinks, beverages, banking, but also leisure, hotels, construction businesses, financial businesses like banking, insurance companies. We also work within telcos, commodities, healthcare, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies. So we are actually quite wide in our in the companies we serve with our projects. Basically our main expertise is, like I said, in performance management and business intelligence and data. So we are organized in a few verticals, which we offer our expertise. As you see, it's on the left side is BI, corporate performance management, which of course is about FP&A, about financial reporting, about statutory reporting, and more business controlling, planning and control cycle support, and all kinds of analysis and forecasting topics, of course. We also cover data management. So we are active in master data management and helping you with accessing the data sources within your company and really managing the data to really get a single source of truth on your data. And we offer services in a wide range to support you with these processes. We are a multi-vendor company. we work with multiple software solutions which we provide to you via Aexis directly. We offer the software itself, we offer services, we offer implementation services, project management, we cover support. So in that way, we act as a single point of contact for you. And we do this for a range of leading software solutions. You see some below on the screen. So we have IBM, Jedox, Board, Hospital Budgeting, Click, Power BI, and Informatica, among others. And today we're going to talk about Jedox. Jedox is a leading FP&A solution, a modern unified end-to-end platform to support planning, forecasting, reporting, analysis, financial consolidation, financial reporting. So actually the full spectrum of CPM or corporate performance management. And then we're to the topic of FP&A, which of course is the subject for today. We're not going to talk a lot more about Aexis, but we do going to talk about the subjects and how to support you with it. So FP&A, of course, obviously has seen some quite dramatic changes, we think, over the last years. And in the end, we identify some key elements, some key things to consider with given modern FP&A. So, of course, digitalization has a massive impact on FP&A as well. More than ever before, we think it is happening fast and has a large impact on everybody's life and everybody's work, the way you work, the way you interact with your colleagues as well. And by digitalization, we not necessarily mean that that it's about digitalizing that is not on paper anymore, or that you just have a process which you facilitate through an Excel sheet or through SharePoint sites. That's of course all good. But in the context of the new normal in FP&A, we also do mean that the FP&A processes should support you in a more agile and quick way, so you can really react on the environment very, very quickly, or even be proactively towards your environment. And this also has to do with the other topic on the screen here about collaboration. Collaboration, of course, is meant in a few ways. Like, of course, that in terms of FP&A, it should not only be a finance-only process, but the business should be involved in the process. It should be something that is supported throughout the organization. Only in that way it gets really the impact that it can have and that it deserves in the end. But we also mean that from a team approach within an FP&A team or within a finance team, recently new finance professionals who are joining companies are somewhat different than finance professionals from, let's say, 10 to 20 years ago. Young people are more than ever, they have grown up with data, they embrace new technologies, and they are more minded on an IT way, on a technical way, and not solely interested in just the finance content, but also from another perspective, from an IT perspective. And they are used to working with data sets, and they embrace technology, they use their development skills to support financial analysis processes. So that's a different approach, of course. Oh, excuse me. From the other side, we have scenario planning on the left bottom side. Obviously, yeah, as the world changes, managing the new normal is almost in default is managing uncertainty. So this also means that creating only an annual or a semestrial budget is no longer enough. The world has changed rapidly, and so as you know, maybe from the experiences like with COVID or other impacts, the world has already changed maybe before you can even have your budget created or have your updated revised forecast created. So of course the examples are everywhere out there. Well, given the time now, well, regulations are quickly changing every week or every day. We do not know what the impact will be on the business for the month of April. Let's then for May. We do not know which company will run out of business in May. We do not know which company may thrive and have great success in April or May. It's very uncertain. So that means we have to be able to react quickly. And that's where the role of technology comes into place. Of course, to have a more faster and accurate forecasts and to be able to cope with these chances, but also difficulties, of course, that occur. A modern FP&A tool is needed. Basically, a legacy or an solely Excel-based process cannot longer survive. you you would benefit from a tool like an FP&A tool like Jedox to have the data automatically in the tool, of course, for example, so you can really act on demand or act quickly instead of just coping with a legacy tool that only supplies very infrequent amounts of forecast, very maybe less accurate data, or asks for a lot of manual steps to take before you can even start with your real analysis processes. And of course, the technology also offers a lot of new capabilities, a lot of new enablements. So depending on the kind of forecast you would like to do, you could, for instance, just rely on your historical data, or have a tool to collaborate and ask input from the business very fast. And that brings a lot of benefits and actually a lot of necessary things to cope with today. However, this is, of course, the new normal. This is a presentation of what we could react to. But as of today, many businesses rely on legacy FP&A tools, or rely on Excel sheets for a large part. And this means that there are some difficulties, some things to distinguish here. So, for example, the data collection, which is more and more a manual process, a very labor-intensive process in legacy FP&A tools. Or imagine with working with Excel sheets that you have to get the data from multiple sources. You need some querying, you need some databases, you need to access these silos of information actually. And you spend a lot of time on just getting the data, validating the data, making sure there are no errors, making sure you can map them. If you want historical data, making sure you can compare those to each other before you can even start with the work of analysis and planning and forecasting, the value adding work. And of course, when we look at an Excel based template, it's not really easy to create an on-demand scenario or create even multiple scenarios. If you start with copying previous Excel sheets, formulas get corrupted, you forget to change a parameter, or you cannot compare the data. So you end up with getting a forecast, maybe a worst case scenario, maybe a best case scenario, but not really an on-demand scenario based on the changes that have been occurring recently. Lots of time also not the amount of detail in the information is there, because you act on a financial data set and not really the operational data that is below those financial figures. So this means that you're not that proactive as you would like to be. You do not really benefit from the technology that's out there. This also means that as an FP&A professional, you probably end up spending a lot of time on activities that actually do not add value, like collecting the data. Imagine a reporting process, or imagine an Excel sheet which you want to use for your budgeting process. It takes a tremendous amount of time to get all the sheets collected, to make them up, to create them based on the previous versions, to collect data, to figure out the errors, to check if everything's consistently, if everything's filled out fine, if you have to validate it. That really adds no value to the FP&A process in the end. So I think most of you are familiar with spending a lot of time in FP&A process, spending a lot of time with spreadsheets and tools to connect to each other. And I think you would probably recognize that some of those activities do not really add value. You might think a little bit different, of course, than my experience or our experience. But yet, to cope with this idea and to get an idea, we would like to ask you to fill in a short question. Given these processes and all these manual actions that you might be confronted with every day, how much time do you think you would spend as an FP&A professional? So you should see a poll popping up right now. So please take the time to fill in the answer. If you consider these non-value or low value adding activities, how much time do you really think you spend on these? Okay, see some things coming up. So as you can see, a lot of, between 30, 40, even 50% or more than 50%. So that's quite a lot of time. If you think about a working week, about 40 hours a week, and you spend like 30, 40% of time on that, that's quite a lot of hours. You spend a few days on really adding no value to the FP&A process. Okay, so that gives an idea. So thank you for sharing. So now we have an idea, and it's good to just keep in mind that we do consider we spend a lot of time on not really adding value to the FP&A process. Well, if we look into some figures, we can state that in a triangle, and you might have seen this before. So you see a triangle in which we say, okay, maybe around 50% maximum is spent on low value adding activities like collecting and validating data. Of course, a large amount of time needs to be spent on the basics, on planning, forecasting, reporting, and little amount of time is left for the really high value activities. In a simplified situation, this could look a little bit like this. And obviously, we would like to spend more time on the high value planning and reporting activities, the top of the figure, the top 50%, because those are the activities that really add value and really bring money to the table in the end. So that's what we'd like to be. We'd like to turn around the figure and like to spend more on that. So we would like to spend 50% or more on the high value planning and reporting activities, and less on the basics and even less on the low value, like collecting and validating data. Now, you may seen it before, and of course, over time, the figures, the percentages may vary a little bit, but in the end, this is kind of like the situation that still takes place, and the transition lots of companies still have to make. As studies and our experience have shown, usually the best-in-class companies, so the companies who are best-in-class in FP&A, spend up to 19 to 20% of time on low value or non-value adding activities. So 10% is quite ambitious, but around 20%, that's the goal to aim for the best-in-class companies of FP&A. If we look into a budgeting process, to give you to go further with an example of how these activities could look like, a typical budgeting process, like imagine an annual budgeting process supported heavily by Excel, usually starts with creating a template. So we have this cycle here, and the first step, we have to create a template. Previous templates from the year before or the quarter before may have been used. So maybe in the last quarter, you start with the forecast of the previous quarter. We have to validate the formulas. We have to check if it's still aligned, if it's consistent with the plans we have for the next year. And then, of course, when the data is, when the sheets have been created, we need to load the sheets with data. So initial data need to be supplied. This usually comes from maybe your accounting system or your ERP system. And then you have to really map it to your budgeting sheets and really make sure that it's correct. And depending on your process, you might want to have reference data or create a baseline or do some target setting before you distribute the sheets. And then depending on the process, whether you work with a part of a bottom-up process, you ask people to fill in the data, or people might be asked to validate the data, give their comments, give their feedback, maybe adjust it a little bit. And then when they're working with these sheets, and remember in a situation, this might be a few sheets that you send out, it might be a dozen of sheets. Usually what we see within companies is that Excel sheets typically have a lot of tabs in them. So people really have to struggle their way through these Excel sheets because they did not make the Excel sheets. For finance, it's kind of clear usually, but for all the people within the business, it's not always the case. And then maybe you, as responsible for the budgeting process, end up with chasing everybody around. Do you fill in the sheet? Was it okay? Is it correct? Are we missing data? And of course, these are all kinds of those activities that really take a lot of time, but do not really add value again. So after everybody has completed it and we have the information in the Excel sheets, then we have to validate it, of course. We have to start with validating if all the data is correct, if it's right. And then we can start by combining all the sheets into one consolidated result, which is our starting point for the real work analysis, and maybe also doing something on adjustments, creating multiple scenarios. And that way really supporting the business, really supporting decision making and giving an idea on how to move forward in time with the business. And that's what it should be, a powerful management instrument. But as you can see, a lot of Excel books here, and this typically means here the time spent on all these Excel sheets is typically a large amount of time that really is lost and does not really add the value of the process where it should be. Now, given these Excel processes, You might be familiar with this kind of process in some way for a budgeting or a reporting package. And we as Aexis have a lot of experience with implementing these processes in FP&A tools. So we are curious, if you look into this budgeting process and keep in mind the annual budgeting process, how much time would it take you? So from the start of the process, from initializing the Excel sheet, from populating the data to sending them out, chasing your colleagues, getting the data back, validating the data, maybe doing some changes, to really analyzing, reporting, having the final budget in place, maybe sending out the final budget, do some reporting, maybe sending it to your consolidation or your ERP system. So take some time to fill in the poll again. So we see some results. Yeah, this is pretty much in line with what's our experience within the companies we have helped. So usually 1 to 3 months, 4 months or more. Yes, 1 to 3, 4 months. That's usually that's kind of a normal lead time. And of course, we do not mean time spent, but just the lead time of the process indeed. That kind of copes with our idea. Well, to give you an impression, the average we encounter is 2 to 3, 4 months. And recent studies have shown that in 2020, based on a UK survey, the average duration of a total annual budgeting process from beginning to end is 2.8 months in 2020. That's usually the case. And of course, again, this is something that we can support with an FP&A tool. If we take it now 1 point back in time to the previous slide, and you still keep in mind the Excel sheets used in the annual budgeting process in this case, and now if we add a modern FP&A tool like Jedox besides this process, and we look how the process would be if we would do the annual budgeting within Jedox. Now you see the process is still the same, but instead of just starting from Excel and starting with data collection, we work with one integrated platform. In this integrated platform, the data is already there, so we are allowed to integrate data from multiple systems automatically with Jedox. So when we start our planning cycle or we start the scenario analysis, we already have the data in place, and we just have to figure which data to use. So you create your application once, and of course, typically for a budgeting cycle, every year there will be some changes. Every year, some things might be different. We need flexibility with these kinds of processes, of course. But once we have this sheets we can work with, we can start and progress with the budget, create a baseline, maybe use some technology to easy up our life. And how we can do things like that is something my colleague Stijn will talk about later in the demo. So I'll give you some examples of how to ease this kind of budgeting process, how to work with a bottom-up approach, and how you can monitor it and really apply a workflow into these kind of processes. So what happens is you do not actually send out emails. Now you just start the process, and people who are involved in the process, the budget owner, will receive an email notification. They will have the signal like, oh, okay, we started. I need to fill in my data directly online in Jedox, not via Excel sheets, just in an online web-based information system. You directly input the data. They get the reference data they might want to have according to what they are allowed. And as an owner of the budgeting process, you always have the progress monitoring where you want it. So you can at any time you can see where is everybody in the process, who started, who didn't start it, what has come back, what has filled in, where are we missing data. And along the process, you can already start with analyzing. So the data is already there. So you can start with analyzing what are the figures, whether we need to fine tune. If we cope with a different scenario, how will we do that? While doing the budgeting, the annual budgeting, for instance, that might be that there are some business decisions for the next year, like some large investments or some markets to invest in or to retreat from. You can already implement those in your budgeting and already create multiple scenarios along the way. So you're much more flexible, and you have all the details, of course, you need to create these multiple scenarios again. So this means this example of how to do an annual planning process with Jedox. It means that you are really streamlining your process and benefiting from a more continuous planning instead of just an Excel supported chaotic workflow. So to summarize this, the sheet, like you would be in traditional FP&A with legacy tools, you would work with more, less frequent, for instance, quarterly, or maybe quarterly, some things should be done monthly maybe, but it's a really static, infrequent process which takes place. Well, within a modern FP&A tool like Jedox, it's continuous, it's real time. You work with data. You can do it on demand when you want. Another big advantage is that you could easily include more data than just high-level financials. It also means that if you throughout the year would change your outcast or your outcome, or you would change the scenario you would like to see, then you have the business information, not only the financial information, but the business drivers behind your P&L that impact the business, and you can change those, you can fine tune them, and then you can see immediately what are the results of my P&L, what's the result for my cash flow. So that's real powerful to have all this information in one place. And that means that we include more than just finance. And as you can see in this circle on the right hand side, this means that we shorten the time with this continuous planning, but we also include lots of the other departments. So we include sales, IT, marketing, procurement, production. Every department is included in the process, and it makes it much more easier and much more collaborative, of course, to have the outcomes efficiently. And of course, like it says down here, it also allows you to benefit more from technology, like implementing those driver-based models, but also use the power of predictive forecasting, for instance, machine learning, for instance, to create a baseline or to spot the trends in your forecasting process. Now, in the demonstration, my colleague will tell you a little bit more about how you can really do this with Jedox and how, from a practical point of view, you could set it up and what are the benefits in these steps to take within Jedox. And the nice thing about Jedox is that Jedox is renowned for its ease of use, for its fast implementation, for its capabilities, that it's really powerful for FP&A professionals to leverage their Excel skills, but with a professional tool. And that in the end supports you in your transformation process to modernize your FP&A tool. But there are a few steps to take usually when implementing such a tool. So of course, we do not want to have all these data silos. We do not want to work with all these local data sources, and which we have to manually integrate every time we do a planning or a reporting or a forecast process. But we want to collaborate, we want to have a modern tool, and we want to grow into continuous planning, including FP&A. We want to benefit from the technology. We want to benefit in the end, in the longer term, from what technologies like AI have to offer us. But what we see from a practical point of view, and what we see within organizations, is usually it's a multiple step approach. We do not immediately can go, of course, to the end result, but you need to start from where you are right now. And depending on where you are with your organization, that might mean that you are maybe working with an old tool or working with a lot of Excel sheets. And one of the first things to do is to professionalize that process and to get a next step based on your current spreadsheets. So like the slide says, you have to get your spreadsheet chaos under control. And that's one of the nice things about Jedox, that it supports you along the way, no matter in what kind of step of digitalization you're at the moment. So that's really one of the powers. But we can talk a lot more about it. I think it's, given the time, it would be good to give the word to Stijn, because Stijn prepared a very good demo in which he introduces you to how you can really leverage Jedox in your planning processes. If you start from Excel or if you start from another tool, and you really have to move forward within Jedox to a next level FP&A process. By having said that, I think Stijn has prepared part of the demonstration, and I will now give the word to Stijn.
Yes, Christian, thanks a lot for the great presentation and introduction for my demonstration. So can you please confirm you see my desktop now?
Yeah, I see your screen, Stijn.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. So to get started, I want to say to you that there's two big ways or two ways to get connected to your in-memory database or the multidimensional database that Christian was talking about. So we have two ways. The first one is to get through the web interface or through Excel add-in. What I'm going to show you first is how we get into the web interface. I need to log in at this case with an admin user, because then we can see all the different options. What we see here is, because I'm logged in as an admin, we have our, let's say, homepage, our landing page, and everything you want to do within Jedox can be done within the web client. So what we see here is, for end users, there's a very, let's say, user-friendly navigation screen where we have, first of all, access to reports. These are very intuitively and easy to connect to reports or to set up. Another option is to create a new report. If I am an administrator, which I'm now at this instance, there's also a modeler available where we can set up our data model and the business logic. Once it's set up, it runs very smoothly. And then we have an integrator. The integrator, that's one of the main really strong things of Jedox. They have been developing many out-of-the-box connectors to many source systems. And this is a very strong point where you can add lots of other data sources into your system. There's a scheduler. The scheduler is, let's say, the moment that you time your integrations. And there's two more options we have. The first one is models. And these models are actually templates which are out of the box available to be configured to your setup and then just to run smoothly, specifically based on reports or workflows, which I will show you later on. And there's a last thing, that's the marketplace, which I will show you in the end of the demonstration, where these templates are available to download most of the time for free. So to get started, what I want to show you is one of the reports I was talking about. So I'm going to connect to my demonstration environment, which is one platform. This is a model that has been created specifically for this demonstration. And what I'm going to show you is a first report. So what you see here is a report that has been set up for an organization, Bikers Best, which is an organization that has been producing bikes and let's say delivering it all over the world. So they have a couple of strong regions, a couple of strong sales points. You will see it during the demonstration that this is a general demo, but the idea behind it is that it's the financial process that's getting clear. What you see here is as well possibilities to do some planning, to do some reporting, to do some analysis, and also small admin parts. So what we see here is a landing page which can be set up for your organization with a logo, with some IDs, with some newsletter, stuff like that, or a direct integration to your reports. What I want to show you first is an integration to the P&L, but it's also possible to have the integration to balance sheet or cash flow. So this is a fully integrated solution where all the financial statements are in the same platform. What we see here is also integrations with first Excel. This I will show you at the end of the demonstration. There's also possibility to integrate with PowerPoint or with Microsoft Word. The first thing I would like to show you is, like I said, is the planning part of our P&L. What I click open is the integrated P&L planning. And what I show you now is, this is a profit and loss. Let's say it's a small profit and loss scheme where we see the different accounts, of course, where we see as well the margin and the possibility to see a couple of things. First of all, we have our actuals here. We have our forecast 3+9, which I'm going to talk a little bit more later on. Possibility to add a budget and also variance. This is, like I said, a template that you can set up the way you want it for your organization. It is downloadable, the template. You have to configure it, link it to your model, and you're good to go. What I want to show you here is there's a driver tree. The driver tree actually gives you a very good overview of how it is integrated. What we see here is, of course, we have the P&L model, and we see all the different accounts, let's say, coming into our P&L. First of all, we see the sales planning, which I'm going to show you later on a little bit more, how we are going to do, let's say, a forecast driver based, where we have the units, the unit price, where we can see what is the impact on our revenue. Also have the possibility to add a production model where the bill of material can be very handy. A purchase model if you're purchasing, let's say, goods from other parties, where you can add it as well. And then there's lots of other stuff to add. For example, HR module where you can, let's say, plan your headcount, FTEs, a CAPEX model as well, where you can, of course, manage your assets, the investments and stuff like that. or you have the ability to do leasing contracts as well within the central model. What we see here is how it links into your cost center model and how, of course, your cost center model and your sales planning and production comes together into your P&L. What we see here is how the P&L then runs through into your, of course, your balance sheet, where you have your journals and your integrated P&L accounts, where you also have the ability to integrate a cash flow statement, as well as allocations or financial consolidation. The allocations, it's a very strong part. This is all set up based on, let's say, calculation rules. But once it's set up, it's all automatically. You don't have to check anything. You just have to, let's say, manage your allocations and your calculation rules. But once it's set up, it's good to go. Also, the possibility to do financial consolidation, which is very strong because it's in the same multidimensional platform. If we go back to my previous screen, the P&L scheme, we also have the possibility for the planning, of course, to add different versions. What I'm going to show you here is how we, for example, use a specific baseline. We can do this for total group or different legal entities. We can do this for a specific version, let's say, for example, a budget, and for a specific year. And then we choose the target which we are going to plan. This is very easy to set up, and all the data is in the same data source, so you can very easily make different versions of your P&L and integrate it into variance checks and stuff like that. So it's very easy to set up, and it's really great because it's all in the same platform. What I want to show you now is how we are going to do a forecast planning. So how are we going to do the forecast of our revenue, sales planning? So if I open this, then I get an extra screen, and this shows you very well. In this case, it's a traditional forecast, but it gives you also the ability, the system is able to do a rolling forecast, where in this case, we are just going to do it year to end. But it is possible to, let's say, for example, 12 months or 18 months, depending on the way you want to set it up. But here to show it, I want to show it for a traditional one where you have it year to end forecasted. What you see here is as well a possibility to do predictive forecast. That's what Christian was telling. There's lots of things going on around artificial intelligence, how to do a predictive forecast. And this is even possible to do a predictive forecast driver based or based on your actuals of previous year. You can have an artificial intelligence engine that will do your predictive forecast. What I want to show is how we are going to do the forecast of forecast 3+9. So we have 3 months of actuals, January, February, March. And we are going to do the forecast for the rest of the year. What I want to show is we have the possibility to do a driver base. So we have our units and our price, and we see what's the impact on the gross revenue. But of course, we start with units. And what we can do is we can do this top down or bottom up. To make it easy, in this case, I'm going to do it for the full year. Top down, and I can have here a drop down, which I can use my baseline, the one I was saying. You can add here all the different versions to use as your baseline, so which is very handy. In this case, I will do the copy of budget, of course, to make it easy for myself. And I know a couple of things. For example, that in September, we probably will do good, and we add, for example, increase 10%. That's possible. What I also want to show you is here at the bottom, you see that all our customers are lined up. I can also drop down to the lowest level. For example, if you look at Europe, Russia is part of Europe in this case, and these are our different, let's say, stores. I can see here, for example, December has to be a good month. We are going to do a good forecast. We can here now say, for example, that we expect to sell for this, in this case, 45,000 units. What I then do is I use a hashtag 45K. And this hashtag is necessary because I'm going to splash it underneath my underlying accounts, which you will see that it's split the way or actuals as previous year or budget or the way you set it up. But if I now push enter, you will see that on all the underlying accounts here, this one, will adjust straight away like it was previous year or based on our actuals. So this is the units. I have the ability as well to plan now my unit price, which I'm not going to do in this case, but you can do this separately for different stores, different currencies, different legal entities. But this shows you what's the impact on the gross revenue. You see here now the impact for my full year, my forecast 3+9. I am expecting to do a gross revenue of almost 155 1.5 million. And this gives you a very good overview. If I now go back to my P&L, you will see this number appearing here on top in my sales revenue. So this is part of the planning. You can do this. I did it for sales, but you can do this as well, for example, for CapEx, for leasing, for other costs of goods, cost of sales. So this is very easy to set up. What I want to show you here as well is now we have done, let's say, a forecast, but we can also include a workflow. So this is the P&L, this is the overview. And if I now want to include, let's say, the collaboration part, interaction part between different, let's say, entities or different people, I can go into my workflow. And this is now here on my status monitor. And this will be a very strong point in the progress monitoring. Because what you see, this is actually the goal is to, first of all, simplify the data entry for end users. What you see here is I am now, let's say, the sales director of this organization, and I see here all my different regions where all the different country managers are, let's say, well, in charge of their own sales budget. What I'm going to do here is it shows you a workflow functionalities, because we see that, for example, Argentina in the workflow, they have done the data entry, and it's my turn to now to do the review of country manager Argentina has put in some data, and now I have to review. I have possibility to reject or approve. But what I want to show you is, for example, for Brazil, because Brazil is still in the data entry phase. Let's say that I am now, in this case, the country leader or the country manager of Brazil. I can do the planning of my sales. What I can do is we always have, let's say, a baseline. In this case, this is actuals of 2019. And I'm going to plan my budget. I have a couple of possibilities to do this, because what you see is the whites I cannot change because this is actuals, which is logic. But I can change the budget. This is a gray field, which I can change. We also have the possibility to add comments. And this really improves, as a part of the workflow, the collaborative part. What I want to show you is two things. We can do this, again, top down, or we can go bottom up, and we can go all the way down to the lowest level, in this case, SKU level. You see that the part's name is not so inventive, but let's say that for your organization, you have your articles in the different, let's say, groups, defined in different article groups, and then you have the articles themselves. First of all, what we do is we take a baseline, let's say top down, to make it easy for ourselves, not to have to put in all the data itself. So what we can do is increase by 10, 5, 10, or 15%. You can add here things the way you set up your model. So this is just an idea on how to do it. But what are we going to do is to make it easy, copy the previous actuals, or we can do also a prediction based on the last 3 years, like I was saying at the forecast. But I'm not going to use it this time because of course, we had Corona, and Corona it's been a very specific, special year. So it's possible that due to Corona, you sold more bikes, could be possible, but I'm just going to use actuals just to make it easy. What you see is now all the actuals have been copied. And for example, let's say I have a promotion coming up for my off-road 200 blue 38. Yes, I want to do a promotion for the first quarter. Let's say I'm going to sell 50 bikes. Yeah? You see it's 17 over the different quarter months. What I'm going to say is, okay, we will do 50 bikes because of marketing action. Marketing action. Okay. And this is a comment for myself, because when I come back to this, I can see what was my comment. I can do this on the SKU level, or I can just put here personal comment as well on the highest level. Okay, I'm finished. I feel confident that this is the budget I'm going to, let's say, push through to my sales director. Then I have the workflow details, and I can go into my workflow where I can also put a comment. So what I'm going to say is, can you please check and approve? And I close it now. What you will see is, sorry. Pushed the wrong button. Okay. What you will see now is that it has been approved, close, and that it goes back to the next phase. So now in this case, I can open this and I can or approve it or decline it. And if I push on the button here, you will see my comments and I can or reject or approve. So this shows you that we can, let's say, top down make our budget, and we can also bottom up check if everything is okay. And we have a full interaction with comments. Okay, good luck. And I just approve. And then you will see that we close now. We go to the next phase and it has been approved. So this is a very strong workflow to improve collaboration. And in my opinion, it's very strong. This is, again, a workflow that is out of the box available. You can download it and just put it the way you have to put it in your organization. So now we have seen the planning part. Next part is our reporting. So if you go to reporting, there's lots of possibilities as well. We have the ability as well to do, for example, a sales dashboard, to create a biker's dashboard or an HR dashboard. Because we are talking about P&L, I'm going to show you the P&L report. If I click on the P&L report, this is actually, let's say, a tabular report. I'm going to make it a bit bigger, okay, like this. What you see here is as well, again, a P&L statement. And this is also an out-of-the-box functionality, which is actually the report of what we've seen before. What you see here again is we have the different accounts. You can go drill down into the different things, click on it, or what we see here is we have the prior year, we have our budget, we have our actuals, and of course we have the variances, standard variances, which are also out of the box available because everything is in the same system. If we then click down, we see that we can add some more things. What you see here is we can add a forecast, which is very easy because in Excel it is almost impossible to put prior year, budget, the forecast, and actuals in the same, let's say, view in the same table. And we can even add the year-to-date data, which is a very strong point. It's out of the box available, where we now have our overview of actuals, prior year, budget, forecast, actuals, and we have the full workflow. We have the full report as well, showing you the year-to-date information. Another very strong point for this report is that we can add adjustments or a comment. And for example, if we are talking about, let's say, during a management meeting or presented to the board of directors, and we are talking about something that's going to happen on group level, we can make an adjustment, which is then, of course, stored in a different database than your source database, but it's stored in Jedox, and you can do analysis based on this. And you can even add a comment, which is strong because then you can always look back at what has been said and check the comment as well. Here at the bottom, we have a couple of KPIs as well, which are also in the system. We have, of course, for example, headcount possibility, of the possibility, EBITDA, EBIT, EBITDA. And you can have a couple of, let's say, standard KPIs, which are in the system, and you can just visualize here. This is actually what I wanted to show you in the web. There's another thing I want to show you in the Excel add-in. I see one question, but we will probably answer the questions in the end of the session. I'm going to show you now how we can go to the database, so the in-memory OLAP database through our Excel add-in. And this is mainly done, for example, to do ad hoc analysis, or if you are a power user and you like Excel, you can do all the same functions as well in the Jedox add-in. So I opened a new Excel because every time you open an Excel, you will have the possibility to add in your Jedox integration, and you have a couple of out-of-the-box functionalities, again, available. First of all, to create a new view, which I'm going to show you. This new view is actually kind of the same as a pivot, but you have lots of more possibilities. I'm going to show you how you can do ad hoc analysis based on actuals, budget, and stuff like that. But there's other possibilities as well. We can go through our Excel interface to our model. So what I was talking about at the beginning, our model with the business logic and what's in our database, how it's set up, you can enter it from Excel as well. And we have the possibility to publish. For example, if we're doing lots of things here and we want to publish it to the web, to other users only accessing to the web, we can publish it here for interaction purpose. It's also a possibility to do some other things, but that's for another session. So what I want to show you now is how are we going to create a new view. First of all, very important, we are now here in an ad hoc view. What we do is we select our database. I have to select my database demo, and I also have to select my cube. If you are familiar with cubes, well, this is set up at the modeling, but I'm not now going to show you how we are going to, let's say, make first ad hoc analysis based on a demo database. And we have set up a sales cube where we have this information. We have products, regions, months, years, versions, and measures. Of course, what we want to see, for example, is how are all my different regions doing in a specific year. I don't want to see all my historical data. It is possible to put it all in the same view, but I want to see now my 2019. Okay. And then I'm also curious about specific quarter. I don't want to see my full year. I want to see only Q1. And next to that, I can add as well specific versions into the columns. But what I'm going to do is I leave this in the filters. I have this in my columns, the regions in my lines, and then I have my years and my months in my columns. So if I push paste now, what you see here is an easy view of, okay, I have regions in Europe. I can click it open and I can go into the lowest level by just clicking on it. So I see that for all my products, for all my versions, I don't want to see all my versions, of course. I only want to see, in this case, my actuals, let's say. So I now have filtered for all my products, all my actuals based on units. And now I can see that, for example, in Germany, in the first quarter, in January, we had almost 170,000 units sold for all my products. Okay, I don't want to see all my products. I want to see, for example, I just clicked on it and it opens all my filters like a drop down, but then in a good view. For example, I want to see my Desktop Pro, how it's been selling. And then I see, okay, my actuals for Germany in January, over 3,000 units, which is okay, it's handy. But what I additionally wanted to show you is how we can create, for example, variants. We can see the variants here as well, because it's just in the system. Just click on it and it opens my variants. So we see that budget compared to actuals, we see that we are selling almost 300 units more than expected. We can also change the view. So I go back to my first screen and I can just add my versions, actuals, for example, and budget. I want to see them next to each other. Okay, paste. And then I have my budget, my actuals for Q1. And I can do a little bit of, let's say, customizing. I go to my options, for example. What I want to see is not just a normal Excel sheet. I want to have a little bit of, let's say, nice tables views. I can click, for example, legacy, paste, and you see automatically there's happening some things. What I want to show you as well here is, for example, we have all the data now for the different periods. I don't want to see actuals versus budget. I want to have my, let's say, variance ready. Okay, paste. And now I can show you that, for example, what I can do is I also have the possibility now to use Excel. Just in my Excel add-in in Jedox, I can use, for example, now, okay, I want to round up my figures, for example. I want to add some additional, I can add some additional things. So for example, a view. And what we see now is that for Germany, the variance is the same thing, and we can add lots of things. The good thing here is this is now pure visualization or reporting of your actuals. We can have as well full visualizations like graphs, but we can also add budget, change forecast, add versions, and have it all in the same view as what we saw in the web, have it in Excel. So one last thing before the end of my session, we got 6 minutes left. I want to show you one last thing because I was talking about all the different templates you can download here in the marketplace. I want to show you that it is possible to have lots of different, let's say, templates available. If we select Jedox, we see that Jedox has been providing lots of templates available, and most of them are free of charge downloadable. So for example, if you want to have the finance suite profit and loss integrated in your system, we can have it here. There's lots of information. You have a couple of screenshots of what you want to do, information on how to configure, and you just have to push install and it will be launched. You have to configure it and it's very easy to set up. The same for the workflow, for example, the one we saw. We have the building block for workflow. We can set it up and it's very well integrated. So Christian, that's it. What I wanted to show today. I think we got 5 minutes left to close the session and to, let's say, end our presentation and answer some questions, of course.
Thank you, Stijn. Thank you. Thank you for your great demonstration. Can you confirm if you see my screen again, Stijn?
Yes, good to go.
Okay, then we proceed with the last topics of the session for today. So to summarize what Stijn has presented to you in his demonstration, he showed that you can leverage Jedox for your FP&A process. And well, in the end, he also showed that there's a very interesting and easy to use efficient Excel add-in. But in the end, of course, Jedox is a very powerful tool because you have the flexibility of Excel, but you do not have the disadvantages that Excel also brings to you, because Jedox is an end-to-end FP&A tool, including its own database, which is a very powerful multi-dimensional engine. So it's an OLAP environment, if you're familiar with that, which is very specifically designed for FP&A process. That's just the thing that it's designed for, not like Excel, which has been designed for all kind of other things. Also, of course, the benefit that Jedox has its own standard connectors. So you have the power to integrate with your existing systems, which could be multiple systems, of course, and the data will be automatically populated to Jedox. Because Jedox is a multi-user solution, it's very easy to work with your team on FP&A process and also work within the business if it comes to a reporting process or involving budget owners into your planning processes. And Jedox comes with the abilities to just define your workflow, also set security settings, authorize people to see their own data or to see their own level of data, the amount of detail they might be able to see. And of course, it also comes with functionality like Stijn showed in the demo to integrate commenting, integrate steps in the workflow, and really work together on a process. And of course, as a modern tool, that's not only via one interface, it's depending on the user and depending on the way you would like to work with Jedox. If you work with the web interface, the Excel interface, or if you would like to work with the mobile interface or have it on your tablet or something like it, it's all, of course, possible because in the end, it's still the same tool. It's just a matter of how you view the data. So that's to summarize the demonstration of Stijn. For the agenda, we have left to talk about your questions. And before that, I would like to highlight one thing. If you're familiar with this kind of process, or if you're interested in viewing more of this kind of thing, please visit our website. And one of the interesting things that Aexis is offering you is we developed an assessment to easily assess your CPM processes. So it's just a few questions that you have to answer, and the answers you give will be given back to you in a report in which you can see what your maturity level on FP&A and financial reporting processes is. And also one of the nice things is if you get a report, you can also compare it with your peers, with the other people who have filled in the assessment. Of course, anonymous, but you can just see how you score and what the averages are. So that gives some interesting thoughts maybe to think about and what might be interesting to improve related to your FP&A processes. So just go see it for yourself. It's on www.cpmmaturity.com. And also, if you're interested in Jedox, of course, on our website, you can find lots of information about it, like videos, previous webinars, articles, links, reference stories, etc. Or just start with your own free trial. You can just set up a sandboxing environment to go start for yourself and just try out what you can achieve with Jedox. And we are, of course, happy to support you with that as well. Looking at the time, that's about it. So in terms of time management, we've almost come to an end. During the webinar, there were a few questions asked. And one of those was from somebody who asked us about the cost of sales, why they were not changed automatically when the number of goods was changed in the demo. Well, we have to figure out what exactly is the logic behind the demo, because it is just a demo in the end. But Jedox is highly flexible, and the demo just shows an example of how the application could work and how you could work with it, just to give you an idea. But like Excel, also Jedox is so flexible that you can define the screens, the reports, but also the logic and the calculations yourself. And then it's also a matter of choices. If you want to have a figure automatically recalculated, or if it needs some manual confirmation, or if there's some other logic behind it. So the question was, why isn't the cost of sales changed automatically when the number of units is changed? Because the revenue does change automatically. Well, that's a matter of choice in the demonstration application. So I think in this demo, there's some logic behind it. It also includes other costs to take into account when calculating the cost of goods sold. But from a planning point of view, yeah, I agree with the question asker. You
Indeed,
might
yes.
well just use a P times Q calculation.
Yes, Christian, maybe one thing, because we were doing the planning of course, our sales planning and revenue. This is actually a separate part in the planning module. But indeed, if you look at, let's say, the consolidated P&L, this should change as well. But of course, this has to be integrated in your setup. But very, very well noted. It's true that it should change as well, of course, because of your cost of sales is let's say indicated by part of course the P mal Q. Yeah, true.
So
very true. I see one more question. Actually, two. One in my private chat was, well, they asked about an integration with other systems. Maybe we can still have the time. They ask, is it well integrated with SAP?
That's a good question. Like we've shown in the summary and also in the PowerPoint slides, Jedox has built-in connectivity, so it comes with connectors to connect to your systems you might already have, either local systems, cloud systems, all kinds of databases you might have. And one of the connectors that Jedox provide is an SAP connector, so you can directly integrate the data from SAP into Jedox. That's definitely possible, and that's of course just that's a well-known situation. Good question, and yes, SAP integration is covered.
Great. I got one last question here. What are the main differences between Cognos Planning Analytics and Jedox? I think that's a very good question. Where it's not a straight answer, but maybe Christian, you want to try it out, or shall we?
Yeah, we can try it. That's a good question indeed. It's not really a straight answer. There are multiple answers, I think, depending on your situation. But to give you an idea, the solutions are also comparable. Of course, they are both for the same FP&A processes suitable, but there are differences. Like every tool, they compare it with cars. Every car is different, but in the end, they both drive. They will. And nowadays, there are not really bad cars anymore. They will all drive very good, probably. But there are differences, and it's a matter of what you're seeking for, what you need, what your organization needs, and what would be the highlights of a tool. So that's. So I cannot give an easy answer like, okay, you have this kind of differences just as a list. That's not really possible, but I would like to highlight that they have a lot of things similar, because in the end, from a technical point of view, in the backbone, there are quite there's quite some shared technology in the solutions both. It's just a matter of how you work it out, how it's presented to the customer, the evolvement over the last years. User interface, of course, and the way it interacts with the user. Those are all differences, but in the end, I think there are more similarities than differences. But I would like to proceed in that question on a later point in time, and maybe in a one-to-one conversation, because there's more to say about it, of course, depending on the situation. Very good question.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. Okay, I think that's all the questions. One more open. Okay.
Oh, there's one question maybe we need to answer, Stijn. Sorry. We got a question. Somebody says, from Aexis as a business partner, we are a multi-vendor. Does Aexis plan to keep investing in both products, given the similarity? Definitely yes. Aexis has always been a multi-vendor solution provider, and we've always been serving our customers with multiple solutions. And yes, we will continue investing in multiple solutions, definitely.
Okay, that's it. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed the session. Please have a look at our website as well. We have a couple of webinars coming up in the next weeks/months. So hopefully you will join them as well. And if there's any other questions, feel free to ask them. And we are looking forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, see you. Thank you very much. Enjoy your afternoon.
Bye-bye. Have a great day. Bye.
Okay, bye.